Welcome back to Small College Conversations. I'm Kristen Eargle with College.town. I'm joined by Tom Norris, OLLU's Director of Athletics. Thanks for being on.
Kristen, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, so this is your second stint as an AD. I want to know from your perspective, you've had two times you've been in leadership now in that perspective. So how have you evolved in the role?
Yeah, I spent the first 10 or so years of my career in sports, athletic communication, sports information. So I was extremely operations focused. It was, worrying about our streams up and running, and it was more of a results driven type of environment for me. And I knew I wanted to be in the athletic director chair at some point in my career. So I think I've only been in it for about 4 years, coming up on 5 here in the summer. So I think just that evolution has come more from not as results driven. Now, if I was to sit here and say I didn't want to win or lose as much as anybody in our division or our department, I'd be lying. But I think it's become more so, let's not worry about sweating some of the small stuff and really focus on how can I develop coaches, how can I empower my staff, how can I build relationships with our student athletes. And I think if I've learned in doing those things that the results kind of take care of themselves. So if I have a group of coaches and staff that really enjoy coming to work and work for me and with me each and every day, I think the results at the end of the day will be there, and not necessarily something that I have to worry about those little things on a day-to-day basis. So I think just becoming more people and purpose driven as I've kind of grown over the last, handful of years as an athletic director has would probably be the biggest, way that I say I've evolved in that role.
And your prior AD role was in Indiana. What are some
Yep.
of the realities and some of the ways that maybe some of the differences in the ways that you've had to adjust to two different institutions?
I think the biggest one is private and public, right? So
Right.
Indiana University Kokomo is obviously a private institution that is a small part of the larger Indiana University system. So, having some of that, I'll call red tape, or I'll say red tape in terms of the ability to go and get things done quickly, um, was not always easy because you had to jump through so many different hoops. You had to get so many different levels of approval. Obviously, here in the private sector at Our Lady of the Lake, we have the ability to make those decisions in house. We have the ability to make those decisions extremely quickly. So just the workflow of getting things done from that private to public sector is probably the most notable difference. Another difference that is notable for me and probably everybody in small college athletics is at Our Lady of the Lake, we are extremely enrollment driven. And in athletics, we have about 400 student athletes. We have about just over 1,000 undergrads on our San Antonio campus. So we make up a very large part of what the undergraduate enrollment is here at Our Lady of the Lake. So that, being a difference from the state system where they're not necessarily enrollment driven and they're getting, state funds, state appropriations, money from a larger state system, as to where our dollars and cents rely on how many butts we have in the seats in our classroom. So the importance of athletics on our campus when it comes to enrollment is a very large difference as compared to what I experienced at Indiana University Kokomo, being a public state institution.
You're the only third AD in school history. Am I reading this right? Your predecessor serves as the men's soccer head coach. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so I mean, are there times that initially kind of going right there and asking a few questions when you came on board?
Yeah, so initially, there was quite a bit of that, and Shane's been, phenomenal to have around. He's been at Our Lady of the Lake since athletics has been started, so he kind of knows, or not kind of, he knows the lay of the land, and from an administrative standpoint, there's been some turnover, but just having him to lean on, when we're in the process of potentially adding some sports, and Shane did a lot of that during his tenure as the athletic director. So being able to go, he's just 2 doors down from me from an office standpoint. So, just being able to go down and bounce ideas and say, well, hey, how did you do this back in 2017 or whatever it looked like? Or, hey, do you remember do you have this file? Do you remember where you placed this? And, have things evolved since then? Absolutely. But Shane's been a really, phenomenal asset for me to have to be able to lean on, when I need some, institutional knowledge, or hey, what did this look like X amount of years ago or whatnot. So, he and I both initially were a little leery of what that relationship would be like, but it's blossomed into a really a good partnership, a good friendship, and somebody that I feel I can lean on, each day if there's something that I need from a historical standpoint, or just to say, hey, you've had this experience on this campus. Can you kind of give me a little bit of guidance on how I should handle it, who I should handle it with? So, been a really neat transition that I haven't experienced obviously elsewhere, but it's been a really fruitful one that I'm thankful for, and utilize really each day.
You don't have to speak specifically to this situation, but in general, kind of what advice would you give someone when they're thinking about, okay, making changes and putting things in place? At what point, when do you start pivoting into, okay, we're going to kind of do it this way?
Sure. Yeah, and that was something that, as I think back to your last question, the differences at IU Kokomo and Our Lady of the Lake, each place, whether it's those two, whether it's, the University of Texas, whether it's, any other institution, everybody has their set of challenges that are unique to their institution. So part of what our president, Dr. Chavez, tasked me with was making change. And I think, to answer the question, that change started right away, right? We needed some, policy refinement. We needed some processy refinement. And I hate the saying that, well, that's the way we've always done it. And I feel like that if that's the case, we're not evolving, we're not growing, we're not adapting, we're not moving with the time. So, for me, I came in October 2nd of 2023 was my first day on the job. And that was really when, obviously started setting expectations and standards. And I think that was a pivot for us and for our department to provide more structure, to provide clearer expectations on what we're going to look like moving forward. So, I think everybody obviously has their own way and own style of leadership. And I think the sooner you can implement that and start to pivot and make those changes and get people on board to buy into what your vision is, I think the more success that you're going to have ultimately. So, that happened right away, and it's evolving, it's ongoing, and it's something that we look at every day on how can we get better, how can we be more efficient, what can we do here. So, right away, but constantly, being assessed, being reviewed, and making changes along the way.
Let's talk about the success. OLLU has reclaimed the RRAC All-Sports Award, given the top overall athletic program in the conference, captured the 10th award in the last 10, 12 years, rather, and finished with the second best Directors Cup finish in history. What in the world? This is incredible success here. So talk us through it here. What have you done to drive that culture? You talked
Sure.
about it being, yes, it's about people, but you're getting some results out of here.
We are, yeah, and obviously I can't take credit for any that predate me. So I walked into a program that has been well established, in the Red River, in the region, in the state, and obviously at the national level. So as I mentioned, I walked in on October of 2023, and that May our softball team's going 58-3 and winning the NAIA World Series, the first one in school history. So. Again, I can't take credit for much of that success prior to 2023, but to keep it going, I mean, it's a situation where I've went and advocated. I've made sure that I've identified what our coaches feel they need from a resource perspective to be successful, whether that's operating dollars, whether that's facility upgrades, whether that's scholarship dollars. So really just listening to the needs of our coaches and the needs of our student athletes in terms of what they need to be successful, right? They know better than everybody from our coaching, perspective, what they need to compete at a conference level, at a national level, at a regional level. So really having that open door, policy and listening to the needs, and then taking that where I need to on our campus, off our campus, externally, to find those resources if they're financial, talking with our CFO to say, hey, we need a little bit more here, we need a little bit more there. Don't always get the answer yes, but certainly going to go to bat and ask the question. So I think that's a piece of it. But what's really big for me, Kristen, is the student athlete experience, right? I think if we can on one hand, provide those resources, advocate for those resources that allow our coaches to provide a first-class student athlete experience, that's going to lend to success. Because I think if the word gets out, hey, Our Lady of the Lake, they're providing this type of experience, it makes recruiting a heck of a lot easier for our coaches. So first and foremost, that's where, I want to make sure that for 4 years or 5 years or however long, we have these students that we're providing as best of a student athlete experience that we can. And that's from how are we eating on the road? What kind of hotels are we staying in? What kind of gear are we at? Those kinds of things. What kind of resources do we have? What kind of facilities do we have? So I think all that in today's landscape of college athletics lends to success. And then, it's up to our coaches to get them here, retain them, and develop them. And if I can provide the resources and the experience on the front end, they're doing their job on the back end to do those things, to recruit, retain, graduate, and develop.
Well, a lot of success that we have as humans, the tendency is to lose how to self scout
Sure.
and to evaluate ourselves. So, what are you doing with your coaches and your staff to continue to identify gaps, to continue to improve and maximize the success that you're having?
Absolutely. I think it comes, I think I saw, where are blind spots, where are gaps, and we talk about that every day, right? We meet regularly, myself one-on-one with coaches. We meet, monthly as a staff, and we talk about what those things are. What are we doing well? What are we not doing well? What resources can I go find that would help eliminate some of those gaps or some of those road bumps or some of those blind spots that we're talking about? So, I mean, it boils down to listening, to open, and honest feedback, open and honest conversation. And I ask that of my coaches too, right? I want them to challenge me if there's something that I'm not doing, or that I'm not holding up to the standard that I've set off, for all of our coaches. So there's kind of that mutual level of challenging, if you will. And I think that has allowed us to have some open and honest conversations about where are the shortfalls within our program, within our division, within our university. And that again allows me to identify what those look like, so I can go advocate with the proper folks that I need to advocate with to close gaps, or eliminate roadblocks and road bumps for our coaches and our student athletes to go be successful.
You mentioned it earlier, which is the financial pressures of small
Mhm.
college. You're also in a very busy market, something I hadn't
Yep.
thought about before. Huge.
Yep.
There's what, a lot
I think
NBA team there, a couple
six
colleges.
universities. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on.
Yep.
A lot of things to compete against. Where have you found success in generating new revenue?
Yeah, it's tough, right? We've got two Division I institutions. We've got a Division II institution. Obviously, we have A&M San Antonio, who is booming and investing in athletics. So it's been tough, but it's a situation where, I'm working with our president, I'm working with our institutional advancement department to identify some of those potential external partners. But we've gotten creative, just as all leadership at in small college athletics has had to do. And how are we diversifying our revenue streams? Is it traditional camps and clinics and ticket revenue, and kind of all of those mainstream things that you're seeing? We're doing the golf outings, we're doing those types of things. But um, really, what I've done, and what steps I've taken here lately, Kristen, is I've hired an assistant AD for external operations to assist in that fundraising area, right? So I think the more boots on the ground that we can get, that are knocking on doors, that are talking to potential partners. Obviously, the more yeses we're going to hear. We're certainly going to hear nos, probably more than we're going to hear yes. But I think it's really just boots on the ground, and identifying, having conversations, stewarding, building relationships with the community, and trying not to step into some of the same markets that maybe some of the other universities are stepping into, and figuring out what our niche is. Right, we know we're not the UTSAs, we're not the UIWs, we're not the Trinities. Um, but we're starting to slowly figure out who our target audience, if you will, is. And I think it's going to benefit us in the long run, and will lead to some of those resources that we've talked about in some of our previous questions.
final topic for you. Let's talk about the next top strategic priorities for you. What in the next
Yep.
1 to 3 years? What's on the table?
Yeah, we're, as I kind of mentioned briefly earlier, we're exploring some growth opportunities in terms of sports sponsorship here. As I mentioned, we're extremely enrollment driven, and that enrollment is fairly dependent on what we're doing here in athletics. So we're looking at growth. We're kind of exploring and seeing what that looks like for our portfolio. What sports fit our portfolio that can maximize roster size, that can increase in the retention or the enrollment and the retention side of what we're doing. But in terms of that, we're looking at facility upgrades. We're looking at just a variety of different things. But I think if you're talking 1 to 3 years, those are the two big things that I think will be coming from our department, from our university. Will be the growth in potential sports in our portfolio. We currently have 20. So the list of what we can go find is getting slimmer and slimmer just in terms of what we already offer. But we certainly, we need some facility upgrades. Our university is coming up on 130 years old. So you can imagine some of the facilities are aging. And again, in today's landscape, when we have recruits on campus, they want to see facilities. They want to see those kinds of things. So that's kind of where we're at with the two big things. But we're going to continue to recruit, retain, and graduate at a really high level. And those two things I think will help in all three of those categories.
And how do you evaluate between adding and then being able to support them, obviously with the facilities as well? I mean, that's the
Sure.
big question, right?
Yeah, that's a lot that goes into it, right? So we're trying to find something or find sports that we already have, existing infrastructure for, so that they can compete in a gym, they can compete on a soccer field, whatever that might look like, or if you think about the bowlings and the esports and the things like that, where we can go off campus and find a potential suit, from a facility standpoint, but. A lot goes into it, and it's something I've been working on for the last 12 months or so, and hopefully coming to a head here, and we'll make some presentations to our internal folks on campus to see what works, what's feasible, but certainly want to make sure that it fits into our vision, into the broader vision of our campus, the broader mission of our campus, and just make sure we continue to support enrollment. We continue to be good partners on campus. So a lot to think about, but a lot in the works and a lot of exciting stuff coming, from our athletics department.
Exciting times ahead. I'm not going to ask you which sports, but let us
Sure,
know so we can
will
have
do.
there and I
Absolutely.
figure. Thank you again for your time. Continued success, Tom.
I appreciate you, Kristen. Thank you.